a modern style offense, a strength of their team being the offense, which we've not seen since the heyday of Arthur Smith and Ryan Tannehill. Welcome into the Hot Read podcast for, what is today? Thursday? Friday? I've lost track. For Friday, May the 10th, I'm your host, Easton Freeze, director of published content here at BroadwaySportsMedia.com. You'd really think I would think about the date before we go live. I have 5 minutes to sit here, but I don't. You can follow me on social media at Easton Freeze. I'm a bit frazzled today because I'm pulling double duty. Producer JT could simply not be bothered to join us today and talk to you fine folks. You're going to have to settle for a little old me. Please, if I see the viewer count suddenly plummet upon the realization that JT's not here, I will cry on live internet television. So don't change that dial because we've got a really good show for you today. I promise. Not because JT's not here, but because we have got so much to listen to and talk about from today's really rookie minicamp opener, at least for those of us in the media. I was spending the afternoon, for the most part, over at Tennessee's facility up at St. Thomas Sports Park in North Nashville, talking with the position coaches for the first time this year, getting to meet a lot of those guys for the first time, talking with Brian and Bill Callahan, of course, and Will Levis, as a lot of the veteran guys are in the building today. And I saw on the Titans social media that all the rookies got bussed in shortly after we left. So they are there in the building, and we'll be back talking with them tomorrow. A ton to get through today, though, and I've got like 30 clips that you don't have to take my word for it from today. We can listen to these guys about the players that they are coaching and some of the key topics that you're most interested in covered on today's show. We're going to be getting into some talk about Will Levis and his development in the offseason. Tyler Boyd, what his addition means for the Titans. Treylon Burks, what his role is going to look like. Some pretty significant comments made today on that front. T'Vondre Sweat, and we can hear from his position coach on what he expects from T'Vondre. The offensive line, all the different positions, interior and the tackles. We've got a lot of thoughts on those guys from, of course, Bill Callahan himself. Zac Woodfin, the Titans director of sports performance, he was out there, which is new for us. It's a very cool new thing. One of the guys that's in charge of the sports medicine for the Titans is now going to be talking to us in the media, hopefully all year long, as a part of the media gaggle with the position coaches on a weekly or twice weekly basis. That's awesome. That's unprecedented access for the Tennessee Titans. And we heard some interesting things from him today. We weren't really expecting him out there, so we were making up questions on the fly, but some good stuff nonetheless. And then a couple odds and ends from different position coaches to wrap it up. All of that and more on today's show. Appreciate those of you that are with us live already. If you are, be a friend. Tell a friend. Send the link to somebody. Hit retweet, hit like. If you're on Twitter or Facebook, let me recommend you go over to Broadway Sports Media's YouTube page. That's Broadway Sports Media on YouTube. Find this live stream, and in the comment section of that video is where you can be a part of today's conversation, like Derek and Alex already are. Appreciate you guys being in here with me today. And while you're there, make sure you're subscribed to Broadway Sports Media's YouTube page. Very easy. It's right under the video. Just hit the subscribe button. It costs you nothing. It is very helpful to me and to those of us here on the show, and JT, who is busy doing other things today. So help us out. Hit subscribe and hit like while you're at it. Helps with the algorithm and all those techie things that we don't really understand, but we know it's helpful. So hit like, hit subscribe. Thank you very much. And by the way, if it's not usually your thing to hop in the comments, make today that day, because I am riding solo today. And while I have like 14 different co-hosts and all the coaches that we're going to be playing here on the show, if you're watching, you'll get to see the videos. If you're listening, you'll hear them speak. But I want your thoughts, your comments, your questions, because I'm basically just going to be talking through stream of consciousness style, my thoughts from what we heard today. So help me out, and I would love to see what you guys have to say in the comments. One technical thing before we dive into the first topic, which is Will Levis and his offseason development. I've put these clips together and I've cropped them and I've made compilations and categorized them. I've done a lot of pre-production work on this, but there's a chance the videos are a little bit quiet. And if they are, just let me know in the comments. I can turn the volume of my microphone down so that you can then turn your volume, your listening volume up, so you can hear me and the videos equal volume. So help me out. Be my producer today. And with this first video, let me know if it's a little bit on the quiet end. There's only so much I can do, but I can try to adjust it a little bit. Okay, so let's start with Will Levis and listen to what he has to say. Well, first, we're going to start with his coach. That was the first question we asked Brian Callahan when he came out today to the podium. We said, what do you think so far? You've had Will Levis out here doing some stuff there. They're not in shoulder pads, they're in shorts and t-shirts, but you've seen him throw for the first time. He's throwing with Calvin Ridley, throwing with DeAndre Hopkins, soon to be throwing with Tyler Boyd. What is your assessment of your second year now quarterback and what his spring has looked like? And here is what Brian Callahan had to say.
He's been great. Really, really happy with the work that he's put in, what he's learned. There's a lot of information coming at him, a lot of technical things, a lot of mental things, a lot of physical things as far as fundamentals, techniques, how we teach, what we teach. He's attacked it with really awesome enthusiasm. Every day he comes in, he learns it, and always the mark to me of guys that take coaching well, they can take it from the meeting room to the grass. And so he's been able to translate those things as we've come out here. So really happy with the work he's done so far. I think he's really gotten better in a short amount of time because of the way he approaches his job, and that's all you can ask for at this point in the year.
And that's that last part that stuck with me. He's gotten a lot better in a hurry, in a short amount of time. That's kind of what we heard from Sean McAvoy, who is the private quarterback coach of Malik Willis. We had on the show just before the draft a couple of weeks ago. He has been with both Malik and Will a lot this offseason, and we talked to him about, hey, your first offseason where you're not having to do the whole draft circus, having to be paraded around as a potential first-round pick like Will Levis was, doing the combine and athletic testing and underwear Olympics and all these things that aren't actually football, not learning a playbook and getting to know your teammates and getting to know your coaches and preparing your body for football. The first time you can do all of that in a spring, you get to the end of the season in January, like the Titans were, because they didn't get to the playoffs. And I'm sure Will Levis looks around on January, whatever it was, 17th, and is like, I have months of time to really structure how I see fit. And so we asked him at the podium, which is this next clip, about what that spring has been like for him and how he is feeling in terms of mental and physical preparation.
Yeah, no, I feel great. Having these last 5-6 weeks to be with the guys and learn the offense. Obviously having that jump start's huge. But physically, I feel like I'm in a better spot than I've been in a really, really long time. That was one of the things I was looking on improving the most this offseason, just getting healthy, getting my stuff back, and being able to play the game like I know I can. So it's been cool to feel my body, get to that point, and I'm going to keep working to even get past there.
Not shocking to hear that he finished last season not 100%. That's just the nature of the NFL. And for him in particular, we know the offensive line situation left him a little bit battered and bruised. So he is healthy, and I'd imagine he's in the best shape he's been in a while because, like we talked about with Sean McAvoy, these guys coming out of their senior or last year of college through the draft process to the NFL, Sean said it's like 19 months of their lives where they are going football, combine draft circus nonsense, all paraded around, interviews left and right, and then football, trying to learn the NFL, which is a whole new gear. Mentally, that's exhausting. That is a serious grind. And to be able to focus on yourself in the way that you see fit for the first time in a long time, I'd imagine is very refreshing. This final clip on the topic of Will Levis is from Will, and he was asked by our friend of the show here, Paul Kaharski, hey, how would you describe the Brian Callahan offense? What does this new offense mean to you? How would you sum it up? And I have to warn you, if you have kids around, if there are sensitive ears in the vicinity, this is a little bit Titans fan porn, what he's about to say. It is going to be something you're not used to hearing from anybody in the Titans organization, and it might leave you a little bit excited. You may, if you're sitting down and you're a gentleman, you may not be able to stand up for a little bit. Here's what Will Levis had to say on that front.
I'd say balanced. I mean, it's pretty vague, but it was cool the first kind of time sitting down, being able to talk to Coach Callahan and watch some stuff, showing, a lot of drop back game in situations where we might not have seen that last year, so that was cool. So being able to throw the ball a little bit more, obviously that comes with the trust in the quarterback, and I got to earn that. But him making a point to me like, hey, we're gonna throw the ball. We're gonna throw the ball on first down. We're gonna throw the ball in all types of situations, and it's gonna be on you, and we're gonna trust you to do it. So that was cool to hear that, and it makes me want to go out there and be the guy to do that. So
that is something that you're not used to hearing, if you're a Titans fan, hey, we're going to throw the ball on first down. Hey, we're going to throw the ball more often. Hey, we're going to have a balanced offense. We're going to pass and we're going to throw, and it's not going to be predictable. It's not going to be. He by the way, he followed up. I wish I'd kept recording. He went on to elaborate here in the press conference and said, I also would sum it up as confusing. And he clarifies, not for us, but for defenses. Hopefully, it's not as predictable as it once was. Hopefully, it keeps the defense on their toes and we dictate the flow, dictate the pace, as opposed to them forcing us into a corner. That's really exciting, man. That is something that, again, it's all talk, it's all on paper. We need to see it. But assuming they've done enough this offseason to have the pieces necessary to facilitate that kind of really revolutionary offense, that's something revolutionary in terms of Tennessee Titans offenses, at least a modern style offense, a strength of their team being the offense, which we've not seen since the heyday of Arthur Smith and Ryan Tannehill and AJ Brown and Derrick Henry, which feels like a long time ago, even though it wasn't that long ago. That's going to be really refreshing. And that's something that I think, yeah, it's May. Yeah, we're just starting the offseason process, but fans are going to be able to hang their hats on that because, dude, that is really exciting. A couple of you guys here in the comments, Alex Titan saying, is it homerism that our expectations for Levis are much higher than what the masses think? What do we see in him that the others who believe will have a top 5 pick do not see? A very good question, Alex. And if you listen to our previous episode here on the feed, in the middle of the show, kind of switched the topic and answered a question akin to this, asking, why are the Titans being disrespected like this? And there's actually going to be a clip of that discussion on YouTube, probably within the next 2 days. So you can go and listen to that already pulled for you on the Broadway Sports Media YouTube page. Shameless plug there. Here's the deal. As long as the Titans, and I won't do the whole spiel again, but as long as the Titans have this quarterback and this coach, and it's going to be a situation where the general media, fans of other teams, see your team as what it is, which is unproven. Yeah, it's a team sport, and there are 53 players on the roster. There's a lot of different coaches. There's a lot of moving parts. It's more than just your quarterback and your coach. Ultimately, we know this. That's the sport of football. But when it comes to media understanding of a team, especially a team in a small market like this, where it's easy for national media folks and for fans of other teams to be lazy in their understanding of you, it boils down to, what do I think about your quarterback and what do I think about your coach? And with these two guys, do they have a lot of potential? Yes, they do. But are they unproven right now, no matter what you think of them? Yeah, they are. They're unproven. And until we start playing games, until we get to at least Halloween or Thanksgiving, that's going to remain the case. And so you ask what, fans of Will Levis, fans of the Tennessee Titans see in Will Levis that others don't see. You think back to last year, he played, I think, 9 games, a 9-game sample, less than 10 games. I think it was 9. I keep saying this. I really should look it up. Help me out in the comments. Was it 9? I think it was 9. He plays 9 games last year. There's a lot of ups. There's a lot of downs. And if you try to be objective about it, it's the kind of thing where maybe people that very tangentially watch the Tennessee Titans caught in a similar vein to Sam Howell last year. I'm not comparing the two, because if you really watched both, there's a big difference there. But or like a Drew Lock, where there were some moments, memorable times. Hey, that Atlanta Falcons game, throwing 4 touchdowns in his debut. Hey, I remember that. Hey, do you remember that primetime game against the Dolphins? I remember that too. But I also remember watching that Steelers game in primetime up in Pittsburgh. There's some ugly moments in that one. And a handful of their games were either boring or unwatchable because the offense just was not humming. And a lot of people see that and they think, well, a quarterback has a lot to do with that, whether that's fair or foul. The bottom line here is that there's just not enough on tape from him. And the fact that he was not a top 10 pick, again, it's expectations versus reality. People's opinion of him, their expectations of him diminished the moment he fell to 33rd overall in the draft. The fact that he was supposed to be a potential top 10 pick and he fell to where he did, people just don't have faith in him yet. And so I'm not saying Titans fans that are paying attention should not be, or don't have a reason to think, as Derek does, Levis is him. As Alex goes on to say here, the guy just exudes confidence. He looks the part. All of the intangibles are there. But the same things that made him fall to 33 and made the pre-draft evaluation of him be, it's inconsistency. The traits are there, but I'm not sure he'll ever put it together. Those things still exist. And until he has a a full season where he demonstrates, hey, we're on a good offense, and I'm a big part of the reason why this offense is good, and you have to respect me. He does things that demand respect from folks. He's not going to just magically have it. That's just the nature of things. The same reason that everybody's opinion of Bryce Young could be dramatically different in 9 months from now, right? Because he, let me remind you, was still the number 1 overall pick, is still a very talented player. Are there shortcomings and things in hindsight where you're like, well, of course he had a bad first year? Yeah, totally. There are. And he's short and he's a limited athlete. And there are things there in his profile. But was he on a terrible team? Yes. And are the Panthers going to be a lot better this year? I don't know. But if they were to be, I'd imagine we'd be saying, okay, there it is. There's that first round pick. Okay, there, I get it. And so that's where you have to put yourself in those shoes and say, okay, the same way I feel about Bryce Young right now, others may feel about Will Levis right now. There's some ignorance baked in there, but that's the reality. Okay, let's move on to our next topic here, because we'll talk a lot about Will Levis in the next couple of months. Let's talk about Tyler Boyd, the newest Titan, who is not technically yet a Titan. That paperwork has not been signed. Here at the beginning of this next clip from Brian Callahan, he's going to explain, yeah, we don't have that finished yet, but it's going to be soon. He goes on to talk about what kind of addition his former player and now newly acquired player in Tyler Boyd is going to be for the Titans on the field as well as in the locker room.
Official yet. Hasn't signed the papers in general, just to put that out there to start. That'll be official sooner than later, but not quite yet. But Tyler is a slot receiver. That's what he does. That's where he's made his money. That's where his production has come from. He's a fantastic slot receiver on top of it. Most importantly, I think he's an awesome addition to the locker room. He's a great human being, great worker, and everything about him is what we want to be about. And so to add him is really is an impactful add for us, and excited about it. Certainly.
This next clip is Brian again on the topic of Tyler Boyd, and of course, he, in that clip, really, what is there to say besides Brian Callahan confirms what we know to be the truth? Tyler Boyd, slot receiver, and I guess you could say, hey, this is confirming. There's a reason why he was talking in the month leading up to this signing about needing a guy to emerge in the slot, and that's what this next clip is going to dive into a little bit more. What his offense looks like with and without that slot guy, without a reliable slot option, how much, how big a key piece that is to the offense that Brian Callahan has in his head, the vision he has for this team. That's the question he answers here.
The parallels, obviously bringing Tyler in and having the receivers we have now, it's a style of offense I'm very comfortable with, one that I've seen work a couple different places now. So that does matter, but still at the end of the day, this is the Titans, and this is our offense that we're going to build here. We have different players here, even though Tyler is one that is a carryover player from past experience. So we're still finding out what our guys are going to do well. We're made up differently. We have different talents, and so every day that we come out here, particularly when we get to training camp, we'll get a better feel for who and what we are at all the positions and how we're going to use them.
This final clip on the topic of Tyler Boyd is the first introduction to one of the new Titans assistants. Meet Tyke Tolbert, your new wide receivers coach. You probably heard his name in relation to the Titans' 6th round pick of Jha'Quan Jackson. He was, at least reportedly, a big part of that selection, and we'll actually play a clip. I asked him about the selection of Jha'Quan Jackson a little bit later in today's episode. But first, he was asked here about having so many veteran receivers in his room, having DeAndre Hopkins and Tyler Boyd and Calvin Ridley. There we go. Those guys, having those guys in the room, what that means for him and how that impacts his coaching style and his teaching style.
It helps a great deal because with veteran receivers who've been in the league a long time, they're used to game type situations. They're used to different coverages, used to seeing different defenses and how they react to them. And I think a veteran receiver who knows where he's going is the quarterback's best friend. So the quarterback can expect a certain guy to be at a certain place at a certain time, and the vets know how to do that, how to get there. Whereas you have more young guys, more rookies coming up, second-year guys, still trying to figure that out. The veteran guys have, quote-unquote, been there, done that, so I think it'd be easier for the quarterback.
That part he mentioned about a quarterback's best friend, that's kind of what we've been, if you've been listening to the show, we've been harping on that. what a slot, and a lot of times with rookie quarterbacks, you talk about a tight end being the quarterback's best friend, rookie QB's best friend, right? Because he's a shorter distance target, a bigger bodied target, and typically it's if it's a receiving tight end, the way that tight end development works, it's usually a more senior guy, a more developed veteran who is going to be in the right place at the right time and is a dependable asset for the quarterback, a dependable outlet. The next best thing is like a veteran savvy slot receiver, in my opinion. And that's what Tyler Boyd is going to be for Will Levis. Now, all three of those top line veterans on this team are going to be that guy in a sense for Will Levis. And that's a big deal because, and I think I saw Jared Stillman today. He titled very, very Stillman of him to say the Titans are babying Will Levis. I mean, that's intentionally inflammatory, which is the Stillman way. But listen, I'm not gonna push back too hard on that because the general sentiment of we're going to make this a padded room for you, pal. We are going to make this as cushy a situation as we possibly can. Now, is it going to be the cushiest in the league? Is it going to be Jalen Hurts with the best offensive line in football and AJ Brown and Devonta Smith and Dallas Goedert as your weapons as a young player, third year player? It's not quite that. But with the limited resources we've had and the limited timeline we've had to set this up for you, we have dramatically improved the situation around you, giving you as few excuses as humanly possible for why this didn't work out, why you didn't show significant development this year. It does not have to be linear because development is not linear, but it needs to be ultimately trending in the right direction. You've got 17 games to do it. Go. Good luck. Let's see what happens. That's the situation that he is in. And I think those three guys being a QB's best friend style receiver is going to be a big part of that. Derek in the comments before we move on here says, it's nice to get straight answers from the team versus what we've gotten the last 6 years. I turned to my friend Kayla Anderson, who you'll know from 104.5, amongst other things here in the Nashville media market. I turned to her today during one of the pressers and I said, and this was right after we talked to all of the assistant coaches, man, none of those guys were a bad quote. And she said, I noticed that too. It felt like a different energy in the air than what we have become accustomed to. And she said, you also just got straight answers from them. It's like they had a vision, had a plan of what to say. And I countered with, I don't know how much of it was they actually had a vision and a plan for what to say, but how much of it is them just feeling free to speak their minds? Because last year and the previous years under Mike Vrabel, which I'm not trying to play revisionist history and say it was all doom and gloom and terrible. I don't see the Vrabel years as bad ones on the whole. I really don't. It went downhill at the end, but so did the roster, and there's a lot of complication there. Generally speaking, I think Mike Vrabel was a good NFL coach and did a lot of good things, often did more with less. But that being said, the way that we spoke to his assistant coaches, you could regularly see gears turning in guys' heads as to what can I say that I know no one's going to give me a hard time for when I get into the coaching meeting later, that I know Mike isn't going to be upset with me about potentially, that I know is going to fit the culture of communication that we have in this building. That could not be any. I mean, again, it's one time. Let's see. Here's the big thing. Honestly, it's all hunky dory right now. This team with this coaching staff has not played any games. Nothing has gone wrong. Let's wait for something to go wrong because it's going to, right? They'll go on a 2 or 3 game losing streak. They will have a significant injury, or there'll be reports from inside the building of guys not getting, something happens because that's the nature of sports. That's the nature of how this is going to go. And once something goes wrong, let's see if things change. I get the impression they're not going to. Maybe that's wishful thinking because it would suck if it just went back to the Gestapo style military state that we used to live under. But I get the impression that through the thick and the thin, this is the way it's going to be. And that's a really exciting and refreshing thing for the Tennessee Titans. I just want to make sure. I want to see if there's any more comments here from folks. Derek saying, oh no, they're building around the guy they want to be their franchise quarterback. How dare they? Kenneth asking, what does an injury to Will Levis do to muddy the waters? Did I say that? Elaborate on the question, Kenneth, because I'm not sure I 100% understand you. Are you asking if he were to get hurt, how the evaluation of him changes? Just clarify, and I'll be happy to answer the question. Putting that off for a moment while Kenneth can get back to me. let's move on to Treylon Burks. And this is the most interesting topic I think we're going to discuss today, because we heard a lot of, well, really interesting things about him from a couple different coaches. We're going to start with Brian Callahan, who spoke about Treylon Burks. I don't know if he realized it or not, but it was unprompted. The question here at the beginning of the day was regarding Tyler Boyd and the role he's going to play, and whether he decided he wanted to volunteer this information or whether he subconsciously thought this question, which it kind of did, it's an allusion to how does this impact Treylon Burks' role. And I think maybe subconsciously he connected those dots and decided we're just going to roll with this. I'm going to get this out there because I know it's going to be a question that's a follow-up if I don't. He says here a lot of things about Treylon Burks. It is easily the most glowing report we've gotten from anybody in the Titans building on Treylon Burks this offseason. There was a point where we were talking on the show about, like, has anyone seen Treylon Burks? Are we sure he's good and alive and still, is his contract still in good standing? Because we were mentioning Mason Kinsey in wide receiver sentences before we got to Treylon Burks. We were leaving him out of the conversation entirely. That's changed. And whether that is, we'll talk about this in a minute. Let me get this quote from Callahan out first, but there is a lane available here to put on your tinfoil hat a little bit and lean into the conspiratorial, cynical element of the NFL from a salesmanship angle. I don't think that's the angle we're going to take here, but you listen for yourself and keep that in mind.
He's going to play everything. We've told him that from the beginning. He's going to play inside. He's going to play outside. And he's going to carve out a role for himself. And I had him come up today and do the break after practice because his work that he's put in has been really impressive. Just to give you guys some context, yesterday, Tuesdays are our harder days of our 4-day work week. It's a really heavy day, and so the load on the players is high. And what I mean by that is both acceleration, max speeds, and yardage. And so Treylon, I think, ran 3,591 yards on Tuesday, and then hit our top speed and team-leading top speed at 22.6 miles an hour in practice. So super impressive workload and performance. And so he's had a really good offseason. I'm excited about what he can bring for us. I meant when I said that the other day that I think he's going to have a role to play.
Really impressed with.
So those numbers are fascinating, right? 3,700 and change yards in one Tuesday practice, which if you don't have your calculator out, that's like 3.5 miles. Wait, no, that's almost 4 miles, somewhere between 3.5 and 4. A lot of miles to be running in one practice, and in the process go to over 22 miles an hour is crazy. Now, that's a very positive report on Treylon Burks, and you're about to hear from his wide receiver coach, Tyke Tolbert, a similar first impression positive report. My genuine, honest reaction to this is, okay, they maybe have heard in the building us questioning, what's the deal with Treylon Burks? Why aren't they talking about Treylon Burks? Do they hate Treylon Burks? What's this team's opinion of Treylon Burks? And they've decided that's not the truth. We like Treylon. Let's write the record here and make sure we mention that in our press availability. Or maybe it's just the fact that they didn't know, and they come in these first couple of days, he truly has blown them away, which is also possible. I think that's kind of what this is. And I think they we've talked in recent days about how maybe he's on the trading block. What does Tyler Boyd mean for limiting his role? And right there, we hear from Brian Callahan say, I don't expect to see his role limited by Tyler Boyd. We expect him to play everywhere and to be a significant portion or a significant player in this offense, which is good news. We'll see if that comes to fruition or not, what exactly he means by that. But I think that it is on the face, the reality of it, and maybe putting those trade ideas to rest. However, it got a little salesman-y there at the end. I mean, it was a little, I saw somebody with a very, very good meme on Twitter earlier today with a picture of a used car salesman slapping the hood of a car, talking to a guy like, this bad boy right here, 3,700 yards in today's practice, team leading top speed of 22.1 miles an hour. What do we think? There's a little bit of that to it, right? And maybe that's cynical. Maybe that is me being stuck in the Mike Vrabel era. Maybe that is, maybe I need to take my tinfoil hat off, crumple it up, and throw it across the room. I acknowledge that. But if let me just ask you this and give me your honest answer. If a month from now they have somehow traded Treylon Burks for a third round pick to some team that likes the idea of taking a low risk, high reward gamble on a former first round pick, a guy that maybe in that building they thought really highly of in the draft process, who has all the requisite skills and just needs to be molded, and they have a I can fix him mentality. And so they throw a third the Titans' way, they deal him off. If that were to happen, would you be shocked having heard this kind of thing? And maybe I'm imagining we hear more of this kind of thing in the next month or so. Would you be shocked by it? I wouldn't be shocked by it. I'm not. These comments aren't doing enough for me to erase the possibility in my mind. Again, I think they plan on keeping him. I think they like him. I think they are excited by the prospect of him in an offense where he's not being used as a cardio king like he was in the Vrabel offense last year, just running clear out routes and being a decoy and not even giving him a chance to contribute. And I hope that that's the case. Personally, I would like to see him in this offense. I would like to see him given a chance to be that guy. But I don't know. Maybe in the comments, you guys can chime in on whether or not you think that's a conspiracy theory or if that's on the table a little bit. Because at some point, glowing remarks turn into suspiciously glowing remarks. And this could just be compensating for them not mentioning him previously. Or it could just be the reality that he's been fantastic so far. But I'm not all the way in yet. I'm like 85% certain they plan on keeping him and they like him. And that number is growing, but there's still a chance that that's not the case. Okay. Let's hear from Tyke Tolbert, who didn't really know Treylon Burks, didn't know much about him before he came here to Tennessee. It didn't sound like, and he's getting a first impression of him these past couple of days. And so here is what he, as his wide receiver coach, has thought about the young player.
Treylon up to this point, you hear things when you come into a new situation about guys and what happened with the past and all that stuff. And I told all those guys, you got a fresh set of eyes on you. And Treylon has done everything and more we've asked from him. Treylon is a guy that this offseason, he's probably the only guy, I think, maybe one other guy on our team from a receiver standpoint. He's the only guy that's played 3 positions. I'm forcing him to learn all the positions, all the concepts, because you never know where he can line up. He can be outside, can be inside. So he's really taken, a hold of that. He studies at night. He asks me questions. He's really good. I'm really surprised, or pleased, not that it's surprised, pleased with his progress. He's getting better every day. Every day we've been out here, he's done something and gotten better.
So I followed up that response from Tyke with a question about, Tyke, what do you, like in your head, what's the best version of Treylon? Based on his skill set and your understanding of him and your understanding of this offense they're planning and your understanding of how he could fit into it, what does the best version look like, and how do you get that out of him? And here was his answer.
Again, that's a work in progress, and I've only been around a couple weeks right now, but being able for him to play outside and inside, he's really strong. When he's running a route and he cuts, pieces of the turf comes up out of the ground. So he's got a powerful plant when he plants and separates, so that's good. And like I mentioned, his ball skill is really good. So I didn't really know how well it was until I got here and saw it in person. But I just remember, again, all the things you hear about a certain guy when you come in. I sat him down and said, look, you're the same guy. We brought him in for a 30 visit when I was in Chicago. So I said, you're the same guy who I saw kill Alabama DBs, kill LSU DBs. So in the NFL, guess who you're playing against? The Alabama DBs, the LSU DBs. So you got to continue to be you, get better and control what you can control. And he's been doing that, taking the coaching, and he's getting better every day.
I like that answer. And that part about it's the same DBs, just go do the thing you're doing in college. That's funny, and it's true, right? Treylon is easily the most, maybe not the most, but he is a top 3 most interesting storyline for the Titans right now. And I can't wait. I mean, maybe we'll be sorely disappointed and he'll be like a marginally relevant 4th option for them this season. But I don't know if you heard, they've got some pretty old guys in front of him on the depth chart. In fact, the oldest receiver room in the NFL, and the odds of all 3 of those guys being squeaky clean, healthy players for 17 games next year, not super likely, just statistically. I'm not wishing that upon them. God forbid they get hurt, but just odds are somebody will, and he'll have to play a bigger role. I mean, How many times do we have to see NWI be the 4th or 5th option coming into a year? And then suddenly he's got a couple weeks where he's wide receiver 2, baby. Wide receiver 1, NWI. Get him out there. It's total tangent, by the way. I saw somebody asked me today, like, I saw the Texans. They signed Ben Skoranek from the Rams. Don't they have a lot of receivers already? They have like 13 receivers in that room. What does that mean? Is he? And I said, Ben Skoranek is in the NWI category of receivers where their names are really only evoked in the media when trying to demonstrate just how badly a quarterback had it on Sunday. Like, it's used in a sentence like, well, I mean, come on, give me a break. He was thrown to Ben Skoranek out there. He was thrown to NWI, was wide receiver 1 out there last week. What do you want him to do? That's the caliber of wide receiver that guy fits into, and that's where an NWI fits in. And tie it back to land this plane back to the Treylon Burks discussion. Maybe Burks is that caliber of guy. I don't think he's going to, and I'm stoked to see not just how he plays and how much he plays, but what his role is going to be. They keep talking about, hey, this guy's going to be playing every position, inside and out. We're going to move him around, and we're excited about his skill set. He's leading the team in distance and in conditioning and in speed and all of these exciting things. It's got me excited, so I can't wait. We'll move on to the offensive line here, and you'll be introduced to Bill Callahan, who was a delight today to talk to. He gave a lot of thoughts on pretty much every position on the offensive line. First, a couple of comments from you guys. And if you're with us live, appreciate you being here. Just a mid-episode update. If you're with us live on Twitter or on Facebook, leave those places. Go to Broadway Sports Media's YouTube page. Pull up YouTube, search Broadway Sports Media, find this live stream, and in the comment section of that video is where you can be a part of today's conversation, like Derek and Kenneth and Glory Day Sports already are. Appreciate you fellas. Kenneth clarifies his question from earlier, saying, yes, his 2024 evaluation. So the question being, what does an injury to Will Levis do to muddy the waters on his 2024 evaluation? Fair question, Kenneth. It makes it frustrating, right? It makes it difficult, more difficult than if he were to just stay healthy. And we saw what he could do with a decent situation around him. It's not a get out of jail free card for, well, we could have evaluated him this year, but he missed half the season. He was hurt, or he was hobbled for 2 months of the year because he got a bum ankle again. Like, that's part of it, man. I don't know if you've been following other things in the NFL recently. There have been a lot of talks nationally, and this was born of the Athletic Football Show. They did a QB draft, just drafting quarterbacks in the league who you want on your franchise for the next 3 years, I think was the basis. And Joe Burrow fell to like 8th or something, 9th. He fell far. Like, he went after Trevor Lawrence. He went after Dak Prescott. And a lot of people were flabbergasted by this. And the general reasoning given on the show, I'm not saying I agree with it, but like the general reason was, hey, this guy, he can't stay healthy, man. And, he's coming off of a year where he had a wrist injury that apparently, you listen to doctors, it makes the dart throwing motion really difficult even after that injury heals. And I don't know if you know, but like that's I'm not a kinesiologist. That seems kind of similar to throwing a football. So that's a concern. That kind of guy who's just constantly injured and getting older, was an older prospect when he came out, even though he's a young quarterback in the league. He was older then, and he's just older now. Man, what have we seen the best of a Joe Burrow? I'm not saying we have. That's in our minds. With a Will Levis, you could get to that point. He came out 23 years old as a rookie. He's 24 now. He's going to be on he's going to be in the territory where it's like, well, this guy's almost 30 years old before we know it. And if he were to get injured this year after being injured a portion of last year, that's not great. That's not what you want. And it would be something you have to take into consideration. Okay, is this a guy that's not going to stay healthy, even if he's got the requisite skill set? We're gonna have to look elsewhere because we can't keep this guy on the field. So there's that answer. Derek asking, I was not joking about Treylon. I think if he delivers 500 yards in this offense behind all these guys, he can be something in the future when D-Hop is gone. I don't think that's crazy. Now, listen, he's entering his third year in the NFL. His first round pick, so he's got a 5th year option. They'll have to decide whether or not to take that before the 5th year, obviously. But you've got at least 2 more years of him cost controlled. If he were to have a leap pad year, a stepping stone year this season, and he goes out and he puts up 560 yards and 4, 5, 6 touchdowns, and then next year they put some more faith in him, make him one of the starters going into the year, and he has a strong season. Does that then convince you, okay, maybe we keep this guy around for the right price? It could, and he doesn't have to, people are saying, well, they're not, he's going to be a one and done contract guy. And he was with the Titans unless he has an incredible year this year somehow. I don't know if that's the case. I think it can be a stepping stone year. So Derek, I don't think you're in the wrong headspace there. Let's move on here to the offensive line. And we'll start with Bill Callahan, who is of course, father of Brian Callahan, the Titans head coach. He is the Titans offensive line coach now. And he was first asked about what it has been like being on the Tennessee Titans, being a part of his son's staff.
It's been a lot of fun. The transition to Nashville and to the Titans it's interesting. This is a team that I felt I know pretty well, in my history. It's great to be here with Brian, my son, and this staff that Brian's put together. It's exciting. It's exciting time. So, yeah, everything's been very positive so far. We haven't played a game yet, so we're undefeated. Yeah, I think first off, the physicality is non-negotiable, and I think that's already in their DNA here. I've always felt that somebody's camera dropped. Okay, or their microphone. I think that the physicality of their play is always important, and that's kind of in the DNA, like I mentioned. So that part of playing hard, playing with tempo, being physical, has always been there. For these kids. And it's a matter of tweaking techniques, giving them a couple different tools in terms of schemes, hands, things of that nature, just to try to build them up, build them a different toolbox.
What do you see?
Dadgummit, producer JT making fun of me from the shadows here. My mic was muted. I'm sorry. You heard that answer. Let me give you, this is Jeopardy style. Let me give you the question to what that answer was. He was just asked about what the message is. You've got these guys like Jalen Duncan and like Nicholas Petit-Frere and Sadiq Charles, who haven't quite met their potential in the NFL. In this room, a lot of young guys that you're being asked as the guru to come in and be the guy that gets the most out of them. Where do you start? You're in shoulder pad. You're not in shoulder pads or you're not padded up yet. You're wearing shorts and t-shirts. It's May. How do you begin your messaging? And that was his answer, primarily before somebody dropped their microphone, about the physicality. Okay. Now that I got my mic turned on, thank you, Jordan. Thank you, JT, for not letting me go the rest of the show muted. This next question from him was regarding the Titans' first-round pick in JC Latham, moving him from right tackle to left tackle. He was asked simply, what makes you think he can do that? What makes you confident you can get that out of him? Not only does he give the reason for JC being able to do that, but he brings the receipts, baby. He lists 2 examples in his past as an offensive line coach where he has successfully done that we've heard, and then a third that I've not heard people talk about, but it exists nonetheless. So here's what he had to say on JC Latham going from right to left. In terms of being able to
Yeah, I think, number one, his athleticism. And then, of course, all the measurable traits that he has. And then you add in size, power, strength. And it adds up, to making that move. Very similar in my experience at Dallas when I had Tyron Smith when I came into the Cowboys.
Heard that one.
He was a right tackle in college. He was a right tackle his rookie year, and we flipped him over. And I think that worked out pretty well. And then Jedrick Wills, when he was drafted out of Alabama for the Browns, was a right tackle in college. We flipped him. Another guy in my past was Barry Sims from the Raiders. He was a tackle out of Utah, who we found in the World League at that time, which no longer exists. But he ended up making that switch to left tackle as well. So I think if you have the athleticism, and you have strength, I think, and you have the muscle memory to, change some skill sets, I think it's doable.
Did you have a World League reference on your bingo card today? Because I did not. We're still talking about my mic being muted. Glory Day Sports saying if JT was there, that would never have happened. Well, guess what? JT couldn't be bothered to talk to you folks today. And I said, it's Thursday. We're talking to the folks. And JT's taking a day off from his day off. Apparently he's recovering from his Wednesday day off by taking a Thursday day off. So you can shove it, JT. Okay. So Bill Callahan. Yeah. All the things we've said about JC Latham, the physicality, the muscle memory, the athleticism, Bill Callahan sees all of that and is confident he can do it. And again, 3 examples from his past of where he has successfully made this happen. One of which being a scary, similar parallel in Jedrick Wills with the Brown's the most recent example of those three, where he was a top 10 pick like JC Latham, the right tackle out of Alabama like JC Latham is, who they did in his first year, moved from right to left under the tutelage of Brian Callahan, and they did it successfully. So there's that. JT earned his day off. I don't know about that. Okay, this next question. JT, I love you. I'm sorry. I have to be mean to you because you're not here. You can defend yourself when you're back. The next question is about the right tackle candidates. And we're going to start with Brian Callahan, head coach of the team, not Bill, Brian. These guys that are in the room, right? You Nicholas Petit-Frere, Jalen Duncan, potentially a Sadiq Charles, Dylan Radins is a guy I haven't mentioned yet. What's the deal with them? What do you see in these guys? What makes you confident? I think the nature of this question was, in particular, what makes you confident in these guys to the point of not having brought in another guy to play right tackle in this offseason so far? And here was his answer.
Yeah, I see young players that are ascending. I see young players that had a lot of room for improvement from last year. But I see guys that have traits and talent to be able to make a jump and make a transition and play good football. We're going to find our best five, however that looks, come September. But those two guys for sure have the ability and have the physical talent and traits to be able to be starting right tackles or tackles in this league. It was good to see them play some, because when you get to see guys play, you get to know where their weaknesses are and how to correct them. And I think that part has been fun to see those guys get better every day fundamentally. Again, we'll put the pads on come July, and then we'll let it rip and let those guys compete. But I think their competition, what they've done so far in their young careers, and then the ability to get better from now until we play, gives me some excitement that they got a chance to be good young ascending players for us.
Brian.
Well,
the same question for Bill.
They're all here. They're all working hard. I think, to begin with in spring, when you're coming into a new system, new coaches, I'm just evaluating, assessing, trying to help these guys learn a whole new different toolbox than they're accustomed to. I think they're exceptional hard workers. That's great. That's a good start for us. But then how it plays out, I think we'll wait. I'll got to be a little bit more reserved on my judgment until we get into training camp and we get a chance to see them in the preseason when the live bullets start flying. But right now, it's all positive. The guys are working hard. They're learning some new sets, different angles, different strikes, things of that nature, that can help their game.
So Bill, a little bit more cards close to the vest there on his answer. With Brian, what stuck out to me was him constantly saying, hey, I say constantly, twice, saying, hey, these guys are, I see ascending young talents. I see guys with a lot of room for improvement. And, I think Titans fans, it's easy after a year or now 2 years in a row of having preseason hopes that were quickly dashed, quickly burned, your faith not rewarded in a guy like Dylan Radins and a guy like Nicholas Petit-Frere, not being jazzed about the rookie year that Jalen Duncan had. It's easy to swing too far the other way, right? If you were too high on them, now maybe you're too low because you're like, I'm not making that same mistake again. Now they've got to really prove it to me. And if we take that out of it and just try to be as fair and objective and clean slate with these guys as we possibly can, which I remind you, all these coaches are, save for a few, coming in, fresh eyes, fresh perspective, no preconceived notions on these guys. I think it's fair to say, hey, Dylan Radins, he was a second-round pick. He was a talented player in college. There's a reason why he was picked where he was, and he's got skills. He's just raw and an unbalanced player. And then with Nicholas Petit-Frere, a lot of the same. This guy there's been some off-field things that have kept him off the field, some injuries that have kept him off the field. And it's largely been so hit or miss, you just can't put any faith in those guys. But with Bill Callahan in the building, with this new regime, having a full offseason to try to mold them and build them up and set them up for success, I think there's reason to believe, hey, between those two guys and throwing a Jalen Duncan in there, maybe throwing a Sadiq Charles in there, we'll figure out somebody that can play serviceable tackle for us on the right-hand side. And with JC Latham locking it down on the left, you have one really good tackle. You have, and this is on paper, again, the rookie season for a tackle can go poorly, so it's going to be up and down for JC, but on paper, a really strong tackle on the left side, a fine tackle on the right side. You can work with that in the NFL. That's the idea, and I think that is Not wishful thinking on their part as much as it is just a reasonable place to be given the assets they had at their disposal and the situation they find themselves in. This last offensive line topic, an answer from Bill Callahan, a really fascinating one. He went in a different direction with this answer than I thought he would. Bill asked about Lloyd Cushenberry, the Titans center, who they signed in free agency away from the Broncos. Bill seemed very fond of Lloyd already, is excited to have him in the building, and gave an insightful answer as to what motivates this guy.
Yeah, it's great to have Lloyd here. The thing that strikes me about Lloyd is, he's a guy who could have gone anywhere, and of course, I'm happy that he got paid, and deservingly so. But he wanted to be with a team that can improve his game, and he wants to be great. And that really struck me that the game goes deeper than the wallet for him, and he has a tremendous passion, curiosity, and intellect that goes beyond anything. So he's great for our room, super for the team in terms of running the show up front, and he has a dynamic presence about him, that'll, obviously help all the younger players come along in time.
Help me out on this timeline. Who was on the team first? Bill or Cushenberry? Bill was around, right? Because the way maybe I have it mixed, but I want to say he was around, and the way he talks about him there makes it sound like he's somebody that he had in Cleveland was an admirer of, and he came to Tennessee and started pounding the table and said, we need to bring this guy in. So I really like what this kid has, and I think he can be great, and he wants to be. I mean, that was as glowing a profile on any player I heard today and have heard in a long, long time. Derek saying, yeah, Cushenberry came after Big Coach was in the building. So that to me seems like the Cushenberry acquisition, the hiring of him, paying him the money that they did was at least as recommended by Bill Callahan, which is not a bad recommendation to take into account if you're Rand Carthon. So JT saying Bill joined during the Senior Bowl. Okay, so that would track then, I think, because I think Lloyd came after that. I don't know. Somebody fact check that. Maybe what I just said is a total bunk, but I think that's the case. No matter what, whether it was before or after, Bill Callahan has a very high opinion of Lloyd Cushenberry, and I think that should excite fans. Moving on to the defensive side of the ball, let's hear from some defensive coaches, and we'll start with Tracy Rocker, the Titans' new defensive line coach. Something I learned today, not only was Tracy a lovely guy and nice to talk to, and a good quote. I can't wait to get to know him more over the season. He's the father of Kumar Rocker, Vanderbilt legend, for shout out JT, New York Mets legend, who didn't pan out, is now on the Texas Rangers. And after a long pitcher, by the way, if you don't know, he was a big time pitcher with Vanderbilt, was a part of their national championship. One of their national championship teams, was drafted pretty highly by the Mets. Had Tommy John, I think, going into the MLB. Throwing arm, a mess, never worked out for the Mets. They trade him for, I don't know, like cash or something. MLB is weird, to the Rangers, and he's now pitching. So that's good. And his dad is now a coach for the Titans, who, if you're familiar with the name Tracy Rocker, you're like, where have I heard Tracy Rocker? He's been in and out of the college and pro ranks, highly, highly respected across both entities. A good dude and a good coach. And he's the one that's going to be overseeing the defensive line, which means he's the one who's going to be overseeing T'Vondre Sweat, the Titans' controversial second-round pick, big boy defensive lineman. If you saw the video of the rookies being bussed in today by the Titans, not hard to figure out where T'Vondre was in that lineup. He stuck out like a sore thumb because he is a big fella. And our questions to him began with, what are the challenges of having a T'Vondre Sweat on this team, needing to try to get the most out of him with all the things that, the baggage that came along with him? Like how does that change for you as a coach, not just having to get the most out of a guy on the field as a player, but also, babysit's too strong a word, but be a mentor and watch over the off-field performance, the off-field existence of a guy like a T'Vondre Sweat. And here's what he had to say.
The challenge, I don't foresee it as a challenge. I think in this business, we all taking, all young men and all women and men, we've all been 22, 23, and we all know what we did. And so that's not the challenge, it's what we do. Right. And now after that, it's one with the weight is, that's going to be a process. And I think we have the right people in the process to make this work for them. And, is it easy? No, it's not easy. But you know what? As long as you get a little support and everybody's pushing it all in the same direction, I feel good about him doing that, and he wants to do it.
And we've all been 22. We've all been 23. We know what we did. That's the counter argument there. It may not be a good one. I say as a 24-year-old, I remember being 22 and 23, all of those 1 and 2 years ago. But yeah, I mean, that's the argument there. And, I like his general, at least I like the idea of the message being, it's not about what you've done. It's about what you do going forward. That being said, his next answer here is in regards to the question of what is the skill set here? What do you see in T'Vondre Sweat? What made you like this guy enough to take him at 38 overall? And here's what Tracy Rocker had to say.
Skill set, I think he's a big man, and this is a big man league, and I think it definitely helps us up front with we have some with Jeff. Offset takes a little bit more for Jeff. Hopefully this guy develops into what we all want him to be. It's going to take time, but having another big man next to another big man, now we kind of create some situations, hopefully, as this thing keep developing, and we have others that can also be those guys can help us there. But he definitely can help us a lot.
So I chimed in here and I asked Tracy, a lot was made pre-draft about this guy being a 2-down only player, not really being a 3-down presence, both in terms of conditioning and in terms of skill set. What do you make of that? And what do you think his ability to play all 3 downs is going to look like at the NFL level? And here was his answer.
I have no doubt he's a 3-down player. I think, one, you have to recognize that he played a lot during college, okay? And it's guys that came out a year before him. Those guys didn't play as many reps as he played. So I have no doubt this guy can help us be a 3-down player. And I feel good about that, but that's with time, learning the playbook, adjusting, and going through the transition
What's his?
So he starts that answer with what I would say when people asked me the same thing post-draft. I have no doubt this guy can be a 3-down player in the NFL. He goes on to elaborate, right? Hey, it's going to take him learning the playbook and staying in the right shape. And a lot of questions I didn't play answers to here on the show were about the weight. And, he said it's going to be hard, but it's hard to be in the NFL. And we're going to do everything we can to hold his feet to the flame, hold him accountable for the being the player that we know he wants to be. This is not us. It's not like a TLC show where it's like kid from hell. You send him to the super nanny and they try to whip him into shape where the kid is resisting every turn. This is a guy in T'Vondre Sweat who wants to be the best version of himself. He wants to be at the weight he needs to be at. He wants to be a model player on and off the field. And they're just going to be holding him accountable for that. Is it going to be tough? Yeah. Is there unpredictability involved? Yeah. Are there going to be some hiccups? I'd wager probably. I'd be shocked if he's suddenly there's no off-field issues. There's no weight issues. We don't have these questions. We don't talk about it at all now that he's in the NFL. I'd be really surprised if that happened. Progress is not linear, but it's all about trending in the right direction. And that's where I think he wants to be. And we'll see whether or not he can live up to that. Okay. Let's move on to we're nearing the hour mark here on the show. Just four more clips to share with you. First, I mentioned at the top of the show, Zac Woodfin, who is the Titans director of player performance, sports performance, I think. The sports science guy, weight room guy, Zac Woodfin, director of sports performance. He is now a part of our media gaggle time with the assistant coaches, which is so cool. That certainly was never the case with the Vrabel regime. And it's going to allow us for some insight on guys' health, guys, nutrition, and like what they're mainly. I think the number one development here is we'll get to ask questions about specific guys and specific routines, but we'll get a glimpse behind the curtain as to what the team's philosophy is when it comes to sports science, injury analytics, recovery, rest, and like what's the word I'm looking for? Load management. I'm like, it's an NBA term, the NBA playoffs, load management, all of those things. What do they think about these things? And that's really cool to have an actual professional who's the one behind the scenes making those decisions, informing that policy for the team, be the guy to talk to us about it. So two clips from him today, and I
So
did not catch everything he said because I was like, who is this guy? I don't recognize the guy. I'm gonna talk to some other guys right now, and then I hear it's Zac Woodfin. He's the director of sports performance. Okay, let me go and listen to this guy. This first one from him is about when he meets with players who have preconceived notions as to what's best for their health, best for their recovery, best for their bodies, how he meets them in the middle, how he's able to get them to buy in to his program. And here was his answer.
Yeah, so a lot of players obviously have their own, personal strength coaches that they've been in the league a long time. Maybe they've worked with somebody somewhere else they really like. And so for me as a good leader, I've got to be a good listener. I've got to ask them the right questions, and I've got to have a humble approach. It can't be all about me and what I want to do. If you're a 5, 6, 7-year vet and you're having a lot of success doing something else, then me as the leader has to understand and have the humility to say, you know what, like I'm gonna meet you where you are with that, because again, it's not about me. And if you feel great, because it's all about the player being confident, okay, and playing at a high level and staying on the field. And if they've been able to do that with what they're doing, then I meet them where they're at and we work together on it. It's a mutual relationship. Well,
the second answer is interesting. Yeah, he was asked about soft tissue injuries, which the Titans have dealt with significantly in the past 3 seasons. I lose track. Many seasons they've been dealing with the soft tissue plague, the pox on this house. And Zac, what's your philosophy on soft tissue injuries? How do they come about? How do you handle them? What's the process like? And here was his answer.
Well, as a performance professional, I definitely believe that you can do things to mitigate soft tissue injury. There's a lot of research, there's a lot of evidence-based protocols, but it's multifactorial. It's not just the training, it's about hydration. It's about how well our guys sleep, so teaching them about sleep and recovery. It's about how we practice, so Callie and I have a great relationship in terms of talking about practices needing to be undulated. And what I mean by that is some practices are very high demanding speeds, some are medium and some are low. And so in understanding how to go between those practices, understanding how to warm up properly, understanding how to activate, understanding the asymmetries guys may have. So of course there are things that we can do to mitigate the chance of soft tissue injuries, but again, it's a very fast, violent game, and the speeds that some of these guys are running and the force that some of these guys are putting through their joints and their tissue, sometimes strains and pulls happen, but we're going to do everything possible that we know scientifically and evidence-based to reduce that, and we're gonna let it rip from there.
Such a cool answer. And an even cooler answer came right after this. And like the fool that I am, I walked away before I got a chance to hear it. But the clip is on Twitter and from I think Buck Rising had it if you want to go and listen to it. He elaborates on the asymmetries the guys have. Yeah, man. And this is something that I was illuminated to. That's the wrong way to say that. So something that was made clear to me for the first time. That's how I want to say it. Last season, when the Saints had a story come out. I don't know how I found this, but it was a preseason thing on some Saints players who had realized like that one leg was a hair longer than the other, or one calf muscle was 17% stronger than the other. And they started training according to that to prevent injury and to strengthen their overall athletic profile. That's a new, as far as I'm aware, a relatively new area of sports medicine and sports science that they're, dialing into here, using, I'd imagine, GPS tracking and, I don't know, like monitors they put on the body while you're on the treadmill. Or so I don't know how they track it exactly. Biometrics of some sort that they collect somehow. Whatever it is, they're able to tell if you've got, one hamstring that is 27% less load bearing than the other on average when you're out there practicing, and say, okay, well, that means your other hamstring is taking on an excess workload. We got to get that other hamstring stronger so that you don't strain this other one. Like, that's really fascinating sports science. And they're implementing here at the Titans. Do we know that wasn't the case before this with the variable regime? No, but did we ever hear anything like that? Like even remotely like that? No, never. So that's really cool. And I can't wait to dive into some nerdy articles about cutting edge NFL sports science to take to Zac whenever we get to speak to them and ask him and rack his brain and see if we get some sick answers, because that's the nerd in me. And I'm so stoked that he's available to us. Should provide some interesting answers. And I'm curious to see how much he's able to talk about guys in particular when they're going through injuries this season. We shall see. 2 more clips for you. Some odds and ends here, and then we will wrap it up. This first one is from Tyke Tolbert once again. I asked him about Jha'Quan Jackson, like I said I did earlier in the show. You guys drafted Jha'Quan in the 6th round of this draft. There were some interesting players on the board, like a Malik Washington, like a Cornelius Johnson, like a Johnny Wilson. Why Jha'Quan? What'd you see in this guy? And he was down there at Jha'Quan's pro day at Tulane, clearly liked what he saw. What was that exactly? Here's what Tyke had to say.
Like you said, there's a lot of different options on the board, whatever, but we're very pleased when we got Jha'Quan. He has a speed element. You know, we wanted to get faster with his room, and he's one of the guys who drafted that has a speed element. He has some return ability, you know, punt return, kick return, whatever. And just with the ball in his hands, he makes a lot of plays. So he'll be able to do a lot of things for us, whether it's, you know, in a slot, maybe we can do some things with him on some gadget stuff, some speed sweeps and stuff, because when the ball in his hands, he's really good with it. So we need those kind of guys.
You don't see him as an outside guy potentially. It's going to be a slot role.
Well, I don't want to say that right now because we got to get him in here and see how he can learn. See, you know, I coached Steve Smith in Carolina. I'm not trying to compare the two, but he was a smaller guy, stronger guy. So he played outside. So it didn't, you know, it depends on the package we have and what plays we have, you know, where we can fit guys.
Coach, different elements.
Fair enough on Jha'Quan Jackson. And so there's your confirmation. They don't really, let's be honest, they don't see him as an outside guy because he's not an outside guy. He's undersized. But listen, I cut him off. I think I spoke over him there. He does not see Steve Smith as the comp for Jha'Quan Jackson, to be clear. He's not comparing them there. But he does bring him up, and that's an example of a guy that overachieved. So there's that. Like Rashawn said, next Steve Smith, you heard it here first. Sure, we'll roll with that. Let's move on here to the last question. This is Randy Jordan. Let me introduce you to Randy. Cool guy. I spoke to him one-on-one today and asked him about the difference. He's the running back coach, by the way. So I asked him about Tyjae Spears and Tony Pollard, having them both in the same room. I compared it to like last year with Tyjae Spears and Derrick Henry. You take one look at them and you say, okay, clearly those guys do different things. They have different roles, different strengths and weaknesses. They complement each other. With a Spears and a Pollard, not quite as clear, right? So what differentiates them? Or maybe are they a little bit redundant and it's just the fact of having a stable of guys that do the same thing? What's the approach here? What makes them different? And here was Randy Jordan's answer.
I mean, you know, you look at them, you know, obviously they both can catch the football. You can do things with them in terms of in the passing game. You know, you're trying to create matchups. They can run the football between the tackles. But the thing I love about them is they can catch a football and you butt a tackle. You know, they can turn a check down into a big play. Right. So what I'm trying to say is basically, you're not counting touches in terms of handing the ball off. I'm counting touches in my head in terms of actual touches, meaning when they're catching the football out of space on checkdowns and on design plays where it's supposed to get the ball. So in that respect, I'm excited to see those guys feed off each other and challenge each other to be the best players they can be.
All right, so there we go. There's your answer. Not seen as the same guy. Not going to be counting touches in the running game as much as counting touches in the passing game, kind of alluding to these guys being options in the passing game, strong options in the passing game, which we know they're both capable of doing. You could have questioned whether or not that was a part of the game plan, considering how many receivers are in the fold now. But this is a passing team, folks. They're going to be passing to tight ends, receivers, running backs alike. Exciting season coming up. That's it for today's show. So that's everything you needed to hear from today's press conferences and media availability. Had it all there for you, distilled into 1 hour of analysis and listening. Hope you guys like that format. Feedback is welcome. If you hate that format, let me know. I won't be offended. Feedback is a gift, positive or negative. Just let me know what you think. I think that's the best way if you're not there and you work for a living and you have other things to focus on during the day. I think that's a nice way to distill it all down for you guys to catch up on what you missed. So Derek, I appreciate you. Thanks for being here. To all you guys in the comments today, appreciate you. JT, get your butt back here for Sunday. Him and I will be live again on Sunday. We'll back to 3 episodes a week starting this week after our post-draft little hiatus, taking it down to 2. We're back to 3 as the Titans are back in action this month with some outside training activities. The rookies are in the building, and I will be at that building tomorrow on Friday. Speaking to some of the select, they said select draft picks, which last year meant mostly the top guys. Like we weren't talking to Jalen Duncan during this one last year. So I'm going to guess it's JC, Tavondre, Cedric, and Jarvis. I'm going to put my neck out and say that's who it is. I'd be stoked if it was more than that, but I think that's who it's going to be. Regardless, follow me on social media tomorrow at Easton Freeze. You'll find all of the notes and comments and videos from those guys tomorrow. My brain is breaking after doing this for an hour. I'm going to get out of here. For producer JT, who will be back on Sunday, I'm your host, Easton Freeze. This has been the Hot Read Podcast. Like, share, subscribe. We will talk to you.